folks, welcome to another Triple T Thursday. For those just joining us, that's tools, tips, and talk, where we'll discuss info for the knife maker. In this week's episode, I really didn't have a topic, so I figured I would answer your questions. So that's what I'm going to go over today. First off, a lot of people have asked me about the journeyman test, what it comprises, things like that. You saw most of it, but remember, that's just the performance test. There's two parts to getting your journeyman rating. There's the performance test that was in the video Sunday, and then there's the presentation test. And for that, you need to make 5 knives and present them to a panel of master smiths and have them judge them. And if you pass, then you get your rating. So for all those people that have congratulated me, I'm not a journeyman yet. I've only passed the performance test. Next question is about copper Damascus, and I get this all the time, especially since I just posted the sword video not long ago. I get this whole round of questions again. I'm even going to put an FAQ on my website and point people to it because I'm getting tired of answering these questions. First off, doesn't it affect the strength of the blade? Well, remember that the copper is just a thin sheeting over the central core. And I think a lot of people get confused when they see that strip of copper. They think it goes through the blade. It does not. Remember, it's a sheet over a core, and then when you grind the bevel, you're exposing that copper. So it doesn't go through the core. It's not affecting the strength of the knife. The only thing it really affects the knife is if the core gets too thin and the blade is really long, then it kind of affects the lateral strength of the blade. But that's why I try to keep the cores really thick. The copper is really high on the knife. That's a key. Don't get the copper too close because that means your core is really thin. So that's question number 1 about copper Damascus. The other one is, doesn't it corrode? Doesn't it experience galvanic corrosion? If you Google galvanic corrosion, you'll see that that requires the presence of an electrolyte, like salt water. Keep the knife clean and dry, like you should any knife, and it'll last a lifetime. In fact, I always say that the steel, because it's carbon steel, it will rust before the copper will corrode. So keep the knife from rusting, keep the steel from rusting, the copper will be fine. The third thing I hear about copper Damascus is that, oh, well, it's not very strong. And they think, oh, you can't forge weld, especially the welders. Always think, oh, you cannot weld copper to steel. Well, it's not welding. Welding means you're melting both metals into each other. Absolutely right. You cannot do that with copper. It's a crappy weld. I'm not doing that. It's actually more like brazing under pressure. And if you look up brazing, Google brazing, copper brazing, it's in excess of 70,000 PSI in tensile strength. So you will destroy the knife before the layers shear apart. Next question, what is in that pail that I dunk Damascus in before it goes in the forge? And why do I use it? So folks, that's kerosene. And the reason you use that is because when you dip your billet in that and you put it in the forge, all the kerosene burns off pretty much immediately, and so does all the oxygen. So it gives you more of an oxygen-free environment between the layers. It doesn't replace flux, okay? It's a different concept. And some people do it. It doesn't have to be kerosene. It really can be any hydrocarbon oil-based, some people dip it in their quench oil. But the notion is just as that burns off, you're gonna have an oxygen-free environment between the layers. That's very different than flux, like borax flux. That creates a physical barrier. When you put flux on your billet, it melts, and then you have almost like a liquid glass between the air and your steel. So you're preventing oxygen from getting in there. And I use that as well, but that's a different, that's different. The next question I get all the time is, what sharpening system do I use? So I use the Wicked Edge sharpening system. It's one of those where you lock the knife in vertically or horizontally edge up in the system, and then it's got the stones that are on rods that you can sharpen the blade. It is quite pricey. I think the base model is, don't quote me, but it's around $599 just for the sharpening system. And then all your stones are between $80 and $120 a set, and I have 6 sets. So But I love it. It's great. You can ensure a precise angle on whatever you're going to do. So it's a cool system. Check it out. I'll put a link down in the description if you want to go to their website. Next question, I get this all the time too. Do I sell my work? I sell pretty much all my work. The only things I've ever kept are the two swords. The first two swords I did, the Spartan sword and the wakizashi, just because I like those and I think they're cool and I like to put them on the table as shows. But all my other work is sold. Literally, I do not own anything except for the elvish sword, but it still needs a scabbard. All my work gets sold first to my Patreon members. It goes up for sale to them first, and then a week later it will go for sale to the public via my website. My website, my Instagram, my Patreon, all linked down in the description of every video. So go check that out. Now the last one is a question. I don't know if it's a question. Let's say it's more of a rant. Okay. The number one way to piss me off is to start correcting me in comments about that's not Damascus. Okay. I've done a community post on this topic, and it's one way to really set me off because it is the stupidest, I feel, comment. Everyone uses Damascus as the term to mean steel that has pattern in it. I know, believe me, I understand what traditional Damascus Woots was. It's not a mystery. We know how it's made. People make it all the time, so don't put all this mysticism behind it. We know how Woots was made, okay? I understand that that's Damascus and what we make today is pattern welded steel, okay? Deal with it. Everybody refers to pattern welded steel as Damascus. I'm talking the ABS, Mastersmiths, you name it. And if it's good enough for Mastersmiths, it should be good enough for you folks. So you don't need to correct me in the comments. You don't need to I'll explain how that comes off to the makers. When you correct them, I understand you've probably watched a video and you've learned some stuff. I already know that. Don't correct me. I use it because 99.999% of people understand the term Damascus. I'm not just a knife maker, I'm a content creator. And I will always use the term that people understand. And that's the term Damascus. Okay? So that's my final say on that. I hope you guys got some good info out of these questions. If you have other questions, always put them down in the comments. I try to answer them in the comments, and I'll probably do this semi-regularly. If I get comments from viewers, I'll try to answer them in an episode like this. So I apologize for the rant, guys, but felt like I had to get that off my chest. If you guys have any other questions, let me know, and I'll see you on the next one.